Demi Moore walked through one of the most scrutinized careers in Hollywood history, carrying a past that almost no one knew about until she decided to tell it herself, and the story she eventually put into her memoir was nothing like the version the public had built from tabloid headlines and box office numbers. She had spent decades giving interviews, winning awards, and making films that people argued about for years. And through all of it, the deeper story stayed hidden, pressed down beneath the celebrity and the controversy and the carefully managed appearances, waiting for the moment she was finally ready to let it out. Born on November 11, 1962 in Roswell, New Mexico, she entered a life that had already started badly before she arrived. Her father left before she was born. Her mother drank, moved the family over 30 times before Demi turned 14, and on one night when Demi was just 12 years old, she stood in a room pulling pills from her mother's mouth during a suicide attempt while her stepfather held the woman down. That moment stripped her of whatever was left of ordinary childhood. At 15, the betrayal that followed was worse. Her mother allowed an older man to assault her in exchange for $500, a fact Moore held in silence for decades before she finally wrote it down. By 16, she had dropped out of school, left home, and was working debt collection and modeling jobs to support herself. By 17, she had married rock musician Freddie Moore, not out of love, but out of a need to go somewhere that felt different from where she had been. She later admitted she was on the phone with another man the night before the wedding, already aware the marriage had no real foundation. It ended in 1985, but she kept the last name, and for 40 years it remained one of the most recognizable names in the American film industry. General Hospital gave her the first real foothold, where she won the role of television journalist Jackie Templeton after beating over 1,000 other actresses for the part, earning $750 per episode. Off-screen, she was already fighting something harder. The partying had developed its own momentum, nights that stretched into days, a pattern that director Joel Schumacher recognized and refused to work around when he cast her in St. Elmo's Fire in 1985. He laid it out plainly: get sober or lose the part. She chose sobriety. The studio hired a companion to stay with her through the full production, and the film placed her inside the group of young actors the press labeled the Brat Pack, opening the doors that led directly to Ghost. Released in 1990 on a budget of $22 to $23 million, Ghost earned $557 million worldwide, topped the year's box office, and stood as the third highest-grossing film ever at the time of its release. The pottery scene with Patrick Swayze set to Unchained Melody became one of the most replicated moments in cinema history. Her cropped hairstyle sparked a fashion trend that spread globally within months, and the film earned Moore a Golden Globe nomination, alongside a Saturn Award for Best Actress. That same summer, Bruce Willis's Die Hard 2 sat at number 2 in theaters, while Ghost held the top position, the only married Hollywood couple to claim both spots simultaneously until 34 years later. A Few Good Men in 1992, opposite Tom Cruise and Jack Nicholson, grossed over $243 million worldwide. Indecent Proposal in 1993 earned nearly $267 million on a $38 million budget, though it drew sustained criticism from those who argued the story reduced women to a transaction, and Moore later identified that period of backlash as among the hardest stretches of her professional life. Striptease in 1996 made her the highest-paid actress in Hollywood at $12.5 million for the role. G.I. Jane followed the next year, with Moore shaving her head on camera, bringing her body fat down to 10%, and completing most of her own physical stunts through military-style training. Playing a stripper drew anger from one side, she later reflected, and playing a soldier drew anger from the other, and she found something revealing in that consistency. Her marriage to Bruce Willis began the way many things in her life began, fast and on instinct. They met at a film premiere in 1987. While she was still engaged to Emilio Estevez, the connection between them was immediate, and 4 months later at a boxing match in Las Vegas, Willis proposed that same night. The wedding came on November 21, 1987, and the two had 3 daughters together: Rumor in 1988, Scout in 1991, and Tallulah in 1994. His vision of family life and her career ambitions never fully aligned, and after 11 years they separated in 1998. But what followed was something Hollywood couples rarely managed. They stayed friends, co-parented without visible rancor, showed up at each other's subsequent weddings, and built something their daughters would later describe as the clearest example of love they had ever been shown. Moore met Ashton Kutcher at the 2003 Charlie's Angels Full Throttle premiere in New York, and within 24 hours they had spent 8 hours on the phone talking about everything they believed in. 2 months after meeting, he proposed at a midnight picnic in Santa Barbara, rose petals arranged into the words, "Marry me," and a 5-carat Asher-cut diamond worth $250,000. By their 4th month together, they had moved in, launched a production company called Catalyst Films, and produced Beauty and the Geek, which became a television hit. The 15-year age gap made them constant material for celebrity media coverage. The term cougar moved into mainstream vocabulary largely because of them, and late-night television treated their relationship as reliable comedy for years. Moore absorbed the attention by appearing on Saturday Night Live in 2005, wearing old-age prosthetics, making the joke herself before anyone else could get to it. The wedding came in September 2005, 100 guests at their Beverly Hills home. Moore in a Lanvin gown, Kutcher in a cream suit, vows exchanged under a Kabbalah chuppah, while Rumor, Scout, and Tallulah read handwritten letters to their new stepfather, who gave each girl a Cartier love bracelet. At 27 years old, Kutcher took the parenting role seriously, attending school events, taking parenting classes, learning to French braid hair, helping Rumor build her early social media presence, and encouraging Scout toward the interest in technology that eventually led her to study computer science. Tallulah wrote later that his arrival had initially confused her sense of the family structure, and Rumor admitted to having had a crush on him before he started dating her mother. The dynamic was genuinely complicated, and Kutcher stayed in it anyway, remaining close to all 3 daughters even after the marriage came apart. The pregnancy loss arrived in September 2003, 6 months in, when a routine appointment confirmed no heartbeat. They had named their daughter Chaplain Ray. Moore had been sober for nearly 20 years at that point, and the grief found every weakness in that sobriety. She started blaming herself, convinced that early alcohol use and smoking in the pregnancy had caused the loss, and the recovery she had built across 2 decades began to fracture. Alcohol returned first, then Vicodin. The couple attended grief counseling 3 times weekly and attempted IVF multiple times, but the emotional distance between them kept widening, and neither one found a way across it. The marriage ended publicly. On their 6th wedding anniversary, September 24, 2011, Kutcher reportedly spent the night with Sarah Leal, a 22-year-old Moore had already seen at a bowling alley where Leal had handed Kutcher her phone number directly in front of Moore and her daughter. The news arrived through a Google alert on Moore's phone while she dressed for a red carpet event. Kutcher admitted the affair and tried to argue that their earlier arrangements had created ambiguity in the relationship. A previous affair with 21-year-old Brittany Jones also surfaced. Days after the story became public, Moore stood at an event for their anti-human trafficking foundation while Kutcher spoke on stage, and she kept herself together through all of it. The separation was announced November 17, 2011. Kutcher filed for divorce in December 2012, and it was finalized in November 2013. The 3 years that followed came close to ending her. A seizure at her Benedict Canyon home on January 23, 2012 brought an ambulance after she was found semi-conscious, having combined synthetic cannabis and nitrous oxide. Over the next 3 years, up to 12 Vicodin pills daily, vodka mixed with Red Bull, her weight down to 102 pounds. Rumor called 911 to save her mother's life. Tallulah described watching her mother transform into someone unrecognizable, a person whose slowing speech and sudden bursts of affection felt like warning signs rather than warmth. Scout felt abandoned. All 3 daughters cut contact, stayed away for 3 years, and skipped her 50th birthday entirely. By September 2012, Moore checked into Cirque Lodge Rehabilitation Center in Utah at $150,000 per month. Tallulah made the first move back. In November 2015, after completing her own rehabilitation program for substance abuse and an eating disorder, she reached out and Moore flew to New York the same day. 18 months of family therapy followed, and a healing retreat in Arizona in 2017 where the four of them worked through what the addiction years had taken from the family. For Moore's 60th birthday in 2022, her daughters showed up with matching tattoos of the word mother, written in her own handwriting, and that image said more than any press interview could have. Moore stayed close to Bruce Willis through all of it, and when his family disclosed his aphasia diagnosis in 2022, she stood beside them publicly, joining his 68th birthday celebration in 2023 in a video that spread widely across social media and showed exactly what their relationship had become. At 62, the relationship she describes as the most meaningful she has ever built is the one she has built with herself. A 2024 Vogue interview introduced her phrase, solo partnering, the idea that her own growth and contentment come first, and the hashtag trended within hours of the piece running. 3 dates in the past year, one with an astrophysicist she met at a TED Talk, the two of them stargazing in the Mojave Desert. Not romantic, she said, but worth holding on to. She and Mila Kunis now run a book club together, meeting every 2 weeks. If love comes again, she has been clear about what it will require, someone who adds to a life she already considers full, and someone who can earn the affection of her dog Pilaf, who has gathered more than 2 million social media followers and has apparently developed standards of his own.